Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our English Learning Podcast. I'm Jennifer, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Elizabeth. How are you today, Elizabeth?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm doing great, thank you. Today's topic is one that is really important in today's world, especially as travel becomes more accessible to people all around the globe. How does tourism affect the environment? Tourism is one of the largest and fastest-growing industries in the world, and while it brings significant economic benefits, it also has a major impact on the environment. Today, we're going to dive deep into the positive and negative effects of tourism on the environment and what can be done to reduce its harmful impacts.
That's right, Elizabeth. Tourism is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can boost local economies, promote cultural exchange, and even help fund conservation efforts. On the other hand, tourism can lead to overcrowding, pollution, habitat destruction, and put a lot of pressure on natural resources. It's a complex issue with a lot of moving parts, and today we're going to break it all down and discuss how we can travel in a way that's both responsible and sustainable.
Exactly. And for our listeners out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Have you ever visited a place and noticed the environmental impacts of tourism? Do you think tourism is harming or helping the environment? Share your opinions with us, and we might even feature them in a future episode. So, Jennifer, let's start by discussing the negative environmental impacts of tourism. What are some of the key ways that tourism can harm the environment?
Well, Elizabeth, one of the most significant negative impacts of tourism is over-tourism. When too many tourists visit a destination, it can put a huge strain on the local environment, infrastructure, and natural resources. For example, popular tourist destinations like Venice, Machu Picchu, and the Great Barrier Reef have all struggled with over-tourism, where the sheer number of visitors overwhelms the area's ability to cope. Over-tourism can lead to crowded streets, littering, and damage to historical sites and natural landmarks.
That's such an important point, Jennifer. Over-tourism can have serious consequences for both urban and natural environments. In cities, it can lead to traffic congestion, air pollution, and a strain on public services like waste management and transportation. In natural areas, over-tourism can result in erosion, trampling of vegetation, and disturbance of wildlife habitats. In places like national parks and protected areas, too many visitors can damage delicate ecosystems, making it harder for plants and animals to survive. In this view, tourism can be seen as a threat to the very places it seeks to celebrate.
Exactly, Elizabeth. Another key issue is the pollution caused by tourism, especially in terms of waste and plastic pollution. Tourists often generate large amounts of trash, much of which is plastic, and many destinations struggle to manage this waste. Popular beach destinations, for example, are often littered with plastic bottles, bags, and other debris, which can wash into the ocean and harm marine life. Single-use plastics like straws, water bottles, and food packaging are often used by tourists, and this waste can accumulate in natural areas, polluting rivers, oceans, and beaches.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Plastic pollution is a major environmental issue, and tourism can significantly contribute to this problem. In many tourist destinations, especially those in developing countries, waste management systems are often not equipped to handle the influx of trash generated by visitors. This leads to illegal dumping, overflowing landfills, and plastic waste that ends up in the environment. Plastic pollution not only harms wildlife but also affects local communities by contaminating water sources and damaging natural beauty.
That's such a great point, Elizabeth. And beyond waste pollution, there's also the issue of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions caused by tourism, especially through air travel. Airplanes are a major source of carbon emissions, and as global tourism continues to grow, so does the carbon footprint of the travel industry. Long-haul flights, in particular, contribute significantly to climate change, as burning fossil fuels at high altitudes releases carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. For many people, traveling by air is essential for tourism, but it comes with a heavy environmental cost.
Exactly, Jennifer. The environmental impact of air travel is a major concern in the fight against climate change. According to the International Air Transport Association, IATA, the aviation industry is responsible for about 2 to 3% of global CO2 emissions, and that number is expected to rise as more people travel by plane. While air travel has made the world more connected, it also has a huge environmental footprint, contributing to global warming and the depletion of the ozone layer. This is why there's growing interest in alternative modes of transportation like trains and buses, which are more environmentally friendly.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And it's not just air travel. Cruise ships are another major contributor to pollution and environmental degradation. Cruise ships generate large amounts of waste, including sewage, wastewater, and plastic trash, much of which is dumped directly into the ocean. These ships also emit sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and carbon dioxide, contributing to air pollution and climate change. In addition, cruise ships can disrupt marine ecosystems by disturbing the habitats of marine animals and damaging coral reefs.
That's such an important point, Jennifer. Cruise tourism has become incredibly popular, but it comes with significant environmental costs. Cruise ships are essentially floating cities, and they produce waste, emissions, and noise pollution that can harm both the marine environment and coastal communities. Many cruise ports are located in fragile ecosystems, and the presence of large ships and thousands of tourists can have a devastating impact on coral reefs, mangroves, and other critical habitats. In this view, cruise tourism is one of the most environmentally damaging forms of travel.
Exactly, Elizabeth. And beyond pollution, there's also the issue of habitat destruction caused by tourism development. In many popular tourist destinations, natural habitats are cleared to make way for hotels, resorts, golf courses, and other tourist infrastructure. This can lead to the destruction of forests, wetlands, and coastal ecosystems, which are essential for maintaining biodiversity and ecosystem services. In some cases, the construction of tourist facilities can displace wildlife and contribute to the fragmentation of habitats, making it harder for species to survive.
Absolutely, Jennifer. The development of tourist infrastructure often comes at the expense of natural environments, leading to deforestation, soil erosion, and the loss of critical habitats. In tropical regions, for example, the construction of resorts and hotels along the coastline can lead to the destruction of mangrove forests, which are important for protecting coastlines from storms and providing habitats for fish and other wildlife. This kind of habitat destruction not only harms wildlife but also makes communities more vulnerable to natural disasters like hurricanes and floods.
Exactly, Elizabeth. So, from the perspective of those who are concerned about the environmental impact of tourism, the key issues are over-tourism, pollution, carbon emissions, and habitat destruction. But of course, tourism isn't all bad for the environment. Let's now talk about the positive environmental impacts of tourism. What are some of the ways that tourism can actually help protect the environment?
Well, Jennifer, one of the main positive impacts of tourism is that it can provide funding for conservation efforts. In many cases, tourism generates the revenue needed to protect natural areas, wildlife reserves, and national parks. For example, entrance fees to parks and wildlife reserves can be used to fund habitat restoration, anti-poaching efforts, and biodiversity conservation. In this view, tourism can play a key role in supporting environmental conservation by providing the financial resources needed to protect ecosystems and endangered species.
That's such an important point, Elizabeth. The idea that tourism can support conservation efforts is a major argument in favor of sustainable tourism. In places like Africa, for example, tourism is a major source of funding for wildlife conservation. Tourists who visit safaris and wildlife reserves contribute directly to the protection of endangered species like elephants, rhinos, and lions. Without tourism, many of these conservation programs would struggle to survive, as they rely on the revenue generated by visitors to fund their operations.
Exactly, Jennifer. And beyond funding conservation, tourism can also raise awareness about environmental issues and promote environmental education. When people visit natural areas, they often learn about the importance of protecting the environment and the threats facing wildlife and ecosystems. This kind of education can inspire people to become more environmentally conscious and take action to reduce their impact on the planet. In this view, tourism can be a powerful tool for environmental advocacy and behavioral change.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. Ecotourism is a great example of how tourism can promote environmental education and raise awareness about conservation. Ecotourism focuses on responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and improves the well-being of local communities. By promoting sustainable travel practices, ecotourism encourages visitors to minimize their environmental impact while learning about the importance of protecting biodiversity and natural ecosystems. This kind of tourism not only benefits the environment but also supports local economies by providing jobs and income for communities living near protected areas.
That's such a great point, Jennifer. Ecotourism is often seen as a model for how tourism can be both environmentally friendly and economically beneficial. In places like Costa Rica and Botswana, ecotourism has become a major industry, providing income for local communities while protecting natural habitats and wildlife. By focusing on sustainability, ecotourism helps ensure that tourism can continue without causing long-term damage to the environment. In this view, tourism isn't just about visiting beautiful places, it's about protecting those places for future generations.
Exactly, Elizabeth. And another positive impact of tourism is that it can help preserve cultural heritage and traditional practices. In many cases, tourism provides an incentive for communities to preserve their cultural traditions, languages, and artistic practices, which might otherwise be lost due to modernization or globalization. This kind of cultural tourism not only supports local economies, but also helps protect intangible cultural heritage, which is an important part of the global cultural landscape.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Cultural tourism can play a key role in protecting cultural diversity and promoting cultural exchange. By visiting different regions and learning about local customs and traditions, tourists can gain a deeper understanding of the world and contribute to the preservation of cultural heritage. This kind of tourism can also help promote cross-cultural understanding and encourage respect for different ways of life. In this view, tourism can be a force for cultural preservation and environmental sustainability.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. So, from the perspective of those who support tourism, the key arguments are that tourism can provide funding for conservation efforts, raise awareness about environmental issues, promote sustainable practices, and help preserve cultural heritage. But as we've seen, tourism can have both positive and negative impacts on the environment. The challenge is figuring out how to maximize the benefits of tourism while minimizing the harm.
Exactly, Jennifer. And speaking of different perspectives, I think it's a great time to hear from one of our listeners. Let's take a call from someone who might have an interesting perspective on how tourism affects the environment.
Hi there, you're on the air with Jennifer and Elizabeth. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Elizabeth. My name is Sarah, and I'm calling from Vancouver, Canada. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I love today's topic. I wanted to share my thoughts because I work in the travel industry, and I've seen both the positive and negative impacts of tourism on the environment.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for calling in. We'd love to hear more about your experience working in the travel industry. What do you think? Does tourism do more harm than good for the environment, or can it be part of the solution?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. On one hand, tourism can have serious negative impacts on the environment, especially when it comes to things like over-tourism, plastic pollution, and carbon emissions. I've seen firsthand how some popular tourist destinations are struggling to manage the influx of visitors and the waste they generate. But on the other hand, I've also seen how tourism can support conservation efforts and provide income for local communities. I think the key is to promote sustainable tourism practices that minimize environmental damage while still allowing people to experience the beauty of the natural world.
That's such a valuable perspective, Sarah. It sounds like you believe that tourism can be both harmful and helpful, depending on how it's managed. Do you think there's a way to make tourism more sustainable and reduce its environmental impact?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot that can be done to make tourism more sustainable. For example, promoting eco-friendly accommodations, encouraging the use of public transportation or cycling instead of cars, and reducing the use of single-use plastics in tourist destinations. I also think it's important to educate tourists about the impact of their actions and encourage them to make more responsible choices when they travel.
That's such great insight, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thanks for having me. I love listening to your podcast, and I'm excited to hear more episodes.
Thanks so much for calling in, Sarah. Take care.
Bye, Sarah.
That was a great call from Sarah. She really highlighted the importance of promoting sustainable tourism practices and encouraging responsible behavior among travelers.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And for those of you listening, if you're enjoying our podcast, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support really helps us keep creating these episodes and sharing more interesting topics with you.
So, where does that leave us in our discussion today? I think it's clear that tourism has a complex relationship with the environment. On one hand, tourism can cause over-tourism, pollution, habitat destruction, and contribute to climate change. On the other hand, tourism can provide funding for conservation, raise awareness about environmental issues, and promote sustainable practices like ecotourism.
Exactly, Jennifer. Key takeaway is that we need to find ways to make tourism more sustainable and responsible. This means promoting eco-friendly travel, reducing the use of single-use plastics, supporting local communities, and ensuring that tourism benefits both people and the environment. It's about finding the right balance between enjoying the beauty of the world and protecting it for future generations.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. Ultimately, the future of tourism depends on all of us making more conscious and responsible choices about how we travel. Whether it's choosing to stay in eco-friendly accommodations, reducing our carbon footprint, or supporting conservation efforts, there are many ways we can minimize the environmental impact of tourism and ensure that the places we love to visit are preserved for generations to come.
We hope today's discussion has given you some new insights into the question of how tourism affects the environment. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for listening. We're always here to share new insights and help you learn English while exploring important topics like this one. Keep listening, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye for now, everyone. And remember, whether you're exploring new places or relaxing at home, protecting the environment is a responsibility we all share.